Here's a sneak peek from today's episode.
The critical relationship is everything should drive to your owned space. So you should be driving that rented traffic. You should be driving that paid traffic. You should be driving that earned traffic to your owned space. That's where your conversions happen.
Welcome to the Content Amplified podcast, brought to you by Masset. Our goal is to help you get more from your marketing content. Each episode is a 10 to 15 minute interview with industry experts that share amazing insights to help you squeeze as much juice from your content as you possibly can. Here's today's interview.
Welcome back to another episode of Content Amplified. Today I'm joined by Elizabeth. Elizabeth, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited. Today we're going to go into one of your analogies that I think is amazing, but we're not going to get into it just yet. Before we get there, Elizabeth, tell us about your career and let us get to know you.
I'm about 20 years into my marketing career from the point that I graduated college, but I often tell people that I've been really doing marketing my whole life. My dad was in marketing. I remember at 5 putting labels on envelopes for direct mail pieces and getting paid, I think, like 20 cents an hour to do it. So I've been around marketing all my life. Right now I work in the GovCon industry, so I focus on B2G marketing. And in my current role, I am the Senior Director of Strategic Communications for Chugach Government Solutions, which has a lot of unique pieces. You know, we market to our government customers, but we also have a very geo-separated employee base of about a little over 4,000 employees. And I'm also responsible for the internal marketing and branding. So there's a lot of interesting things that happen in my job today.
I love it. And that's going to be exciting to dive into. But Elizabeth, we always ask our guests, what do you love about content and marketing?
I think one of the things that I love the most about it is that it's always changing, that it kind of appeals to my secret ADHD a little bit, and that there's always something new. And it appeals to my sense of curiosity and exploration and empathy and relationship. There's so much interpersonal, even on a mass scale. There's so much interpersonal in marketing that I really enjoy.
Love that. That's awesome. Well, Elizabeth, this is an analogy that I have grown to love ever since you first introduced me to it, the rope bridge analogy.
Mm-hmm.
So to kick things off, high level, what's the analogy and how does it relate to content and marketing?
Yeah, so the rope bridge is really what it's intended to be. First of all, I think is important to understand it's intended to be a way of organizing your marketing space and your marketing landscape. And I think in today's environment, there are so many different things that are out there that we could pull the levers and triggers on. And I've found in teaching marketing and also in consulting for small businesses, the deer in headlights hits very quickly when people realize all of these things that are out there. But I propose that the reality is while there's lots of stuff out there, the equation or the organization of all of those distribution nodes or distribution opportunities are really pretty consistent. You're just deciding what belongs in those spaces. So ROPE is rented, owned, paid, and earned media spaces. Rented is your social media. A lot of people call it your shared space. The reason that I don't call it shared space why I call it rented space is because I think it's very important to understand that you don't have control of that space. That is a profile account that you have on somebody else's property, and the almighty landlord can change the rules of play at any moment. So putting all of your eggs in that social media or rented space basket is not a good idea. And a lot of small businesses in particular go, okay, I don't need a website because I have this great Facebook page or Instagram page or whatever it is. You cannot put all your eggs in that basket. So that's why I call it rented space. Your own space is space where you have the most ability to manage and control. And I use control very lightly because there's not a lot we control in marketing. But that's your website, assuming you own your domain name. That can also be your email marketing. And really the way I think about that is your list, your email subscription list. So in that regard, we think about it in terms of owning your audience, which you can lose. You can lose ownership, right? But in the time that you're nurturing it, if you're a good owner, you can own it. Your paid space is advertising. Your earned space is maybe the way to think about it is digital PR. Or the other way I like to think about it is any opportunity that you are getting in front of another person's audience. So it's space where there's often a gatekeeper. So in this instance, like what we're doing today, it's owned space for you because you own your audience. It's earned space for me because I'm gaining access to your audience. You're my gatekeeper for your audience. The critical relationship is everything should drive to your owned space. So you should be driving that rented traffic. You should be driving that paid traffic. You should be driving that earned traffic to your owned space. That's where your conversions happen. I'm going to pause. Are there any questions before we jump into the actual bridge? It's a
No,
big
that was going to be my
analogy.
next question. I love the rope. I love the framework here. It's really the distribution of the content, where you're having conversations, things like that. So naturally, you have to be walking on something to go on this
Mhm.
bridge. How does the analogy continue from that point?
Yeah. So when we take this rope and we create this rope bridge, I always think of like every archaeological movie out there, right? Like adventure archaeology movie. At some point, they need to get to the other side of the giant cliff. There's a huge bridge, and it may or may not be safe. Um, so you have this person, and so that's what your rope is built. Like your rope builds that bridge. All of those content pieces or your content are the wood slats that go along. And when we're thinking about this from a customer journey perspective, when we look at this from one cliffside to the next, we want a couple things. We want a strong rope, and a strong rope means it's got quality materials. So, in an ideal scenario, that is a steel rope, not a raveling old rope. And, the things that make our material strong are things like marketing automation, AI, social media calendars, social media management tools, a good CMS, a good CRM, like all of those. It helps us put all of those in the tools category, the execution apparatus, and not the distribution category. So we can pull all of that complication out a little bit. That's what makes our rope strong. And then the other piece is we want that content to be really good. We could have this beautiful steel rope, and if we don't have good slats for people to walk along, they're not going to keep going. If they're falling through because I think of these kind of broken pieces of wood. Like if your content isn't a quality that makes them continue taking steps, you're going to lose them. So you're going to lose them if your distribution nodes or if your distribution materials aren't strong. You're going to lose them if your content's not strong. Organizing it in this way helps you understand which one is the problem. If you have great content and poor distribution, you're going to know that. If you have poor content and great distribution, you're going to know that too. And then the other thing that I really love to teach with my rope bridge is, we build this bridge looking at it from left to right, making sure we can get from one side to the next. We're looking at it from a customer journey view. But then if we turn it, that there's a cool thing that a bridge does when you look from one end to the next. it turns into a target. And it helps us remember that we're not when we're developing quality content and quality marketing, we're not thinking about this mass group of people. We're thinking about that target, that individual person that we're asking to cross a bridge over a 100-foot cavern. And if they fail halfway through, they could die. And it creates this sense of like, okay, I have a responsibility as a marketer, as a company. I have a responsibility to create trust, because the only thing that is going to that is going to make that person continue to step across this bridge, which is a bad idea. It's a bad idea to cross over a giant, cliff to cliff bridge. We're asking them to do something that's potentially a bad idea. Not really, but and we need to make sure that they trust us in order to do that. They're not go If they don't trust us, they're not going to keep walking. So there becomes this. It helps us see the landscape. It helps us see the materials, and then it puts into perspective the responsibility we have to make sure that we have a well-constructed bridge. It is a very big analogy, but there is the analogy in a nutshell, a very
Oh,
big
I love
nutshell.
this analogy. This is so cool. So, a couple of follow-up questions to that and a couple of thoughts as I'm thinking through this. One thing I love is as a consumer of content,
Hmm.
if I'm standing on one end of this bridge and I look out and there are missing slats, or if there are things where I'm like, okay, this doesn't look like it's going to get me to the end destination, I will never take the first step on that bridge. So, it's super nice how you have used this analogy. There's a progression, there are steps, and people have to have that trust that this bridge can get me from there to there. Or as they're walking along, if they notice a broken slat, for me, that the first thought is, should I turn back?
Yep.
Kind of an idea. So, one question I have, and I also, one other thing before I get there, I love that this is about strategy. I think a lot of people produce content for content's sake. And on this podcast, we are advocating for a sound strategy when it comes to content. What I love is that this is a good way of looking and building a strategy. If you build your distribution channels, build your content, think about it in this analogy to say the ultimate end goal is to get where and how are we going to get people there? And that's your content strategy, is how you get them from point A to point B. So when you're looking at this bridge analogy, do you look at it as one giant bridge and there's a giant chasm that you're trying to get customers from where they're at to the purchase point? Or is it more like more small bridges where you're trying to say, I'm trying to prove this point, like
Hmm.
that, I'm coming up blank with good examples, but for like our industry, alignment internally makes a business impact. So I'm going to
Right.
build a bridge over that river and get them across. Okay, great. When I've got them across that bridge, now I'm going to send them on a new bridge to, help people understand what that really looks like or something like that. Or do you look at it as one holistic bridge that the marketing team is constantly working on? How do you kind of view that?
So the way that I think you could use it either way. I think you have to decide what makes sense for your business, and the services or the products or your audience that you have. I think most companies need multiple bridges. You need a bridge for each persona at least, or each audience. And so once you get an audience across one bridge, I mean, there's a cross-selling element, right? Like you either want them to keep going across that bridge over and over again, or you might be comfortable to be like, hey, so you liked this one, maybe try this other one. Now, from an organizational standpoint, a lot of your elements are going to be the same. Like you don't create a new CRM for each bridge, so a lot of the rope pieces are going to be the same. Now, for certain audiences, there may be elements of a rope that you're not using that you are using for another. So your rented space is probably the lowest hanging fruit on that one, right? Like, there are, like, you're not going to get on TikTok for certain demographics, and you will for other demographics, just like Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. And your distribution mix is absolutely going to change, but not every element of it. Probably your content's going to be different. There'll be overlap. Like, I'm not advocating for inefficiencies, but you should be looking at, like, okay, I've got one bridge. It's really successful with this audience. I'm going to test what works with the next one, but we're going to build a new bridge.
That I love that. And that makes more sense to me too. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Elizabeth, we're out of
Yes.
time today.
Okay.
So it goes by so quick, these
It does.
episodes. Now, a couple cool things. One is, and we can edit this out if you don't want the audience to know, you're in the process of writing some really long form content to kind of dive
Mm-hmm.
into this bridge analogy. So, first and foremost, if people want to connect with you, find out more, learn more about the rope bridge analogy and how they can apply it in their business, how and where can they find you?
So I'm on LinkedIn. And as I said that, I can't remember I think it's E. Nerland is my,
We'll link to it, so you don't have to
okay.
worry about that.
Okay. I was like, oh shoot. Or I'm happy to give my email address. Anybody can, I love connecting with other marketers. So, and I am in the process of writing a book. I've got a full-time job. I'm a mom of four, so my guess is it's going to be a little while. But I am in the process, and I might be trying to get some of the overarching content out on my LinkedIn earlier, just because I've found that it's really valuable for people. It seems like people really resonate with it, and that's the goal. The goal is to just help people do better, figure it out, organize their marketing space. So
I love it. Well, Elizabeth, again, I appreciate your time and insights today.
yeah, thank you. This was fun.
Thank you for listening to the Content Amplified podcast. Please subscribe and leave us a review. And for additional ways to get more out of your content, visit our website at getmasset.com. That's getmasset.com. And tune in next time to the Content Amplified podcast.